8x10 picture of my dad, Elvis, and Elvis' Cadillac. Look to the far right of that mantle, you'll find a little 3x5 picture of me at my kindergarten graduation. To the right, on this side of the bridge we just crossed over, that takes you out to the Puget Sound, which eventually gets you out to the Pacific Ocean. Lake Union is the freshwater union of those two bodies of water. Now, Lake Union might look pretty big to you guys, but on average, Lake Union's only about 34 feet deep. Now, my duck is 36 feet long. That means if I was to take my duck right now, stand up on her hind end, you still have about 2 feet of my duck sticking up out of the water. And that's where you find me at, hanging on for dear life, I can tell you that. Over to my right, you're going to see the Liberator, a perfect example of one of our fishing boats here in the Seattle area. Now, the majority of the fleet, 700 of them, make their home in a place called Fisherman's Terminal, located on the side of the bridge we just crossed over. But a little bit later in this tour, I'm going to show you how you can actually get to Fisherman's Terminal, because Fisherman's Terminal is where you can see all the boats that are featured on the current season of the TV show, The Deadliest Catch. That's right, you guys. Now, they don't call it The Deadliest Catch for nothing. Do you realize that when these crab fishing boats go up to the Aleutians for their season, 100% of the men and women who work on the deck of these boats will get injured? 50% of all the seafood consumed in the United States. Sorry about that. Let me go back here. We're back on, have a nice adult beverage. Come back a few days later, they're gone. They simply move to another spot here on the water. Now, this one here on the end with the silver-lined walls is sort of interesting. When it gets warm out, they'll open up these two garage-style doors. He has that one open up right now. But take a look against his far wall. You'll actually get to see his washer and dryer. The coal gasification plant. That's how we used to heat the city of Seattle in the early 1900s. At the height of coal gasification, it's there in the water, looking at it from the same perspective you and I are right now. She took a look at those two so before the city could tear it all the way down, she went to him and asked if we could leave it up. The city said, yes. We put a fence around it, and what do we call that stuff here in Seattle? We call that public art. It's the first example of turning a once industrial site into a common use park in the United States. Now, if it looks familiar to you guys, it has been featured in a number of TV shows and movies. One of the movies featured the late, great Australian actor, Heath Ledger. The name of the movie? 10 Things I Hate About You, co-starring Julia Stiles. That's where they filmed that big paintball fight. The Space Needle to the right stands in only at 605 feet tall. Now, here's my bodacious travel tip. The Columbia building has an observation deck on the 73rd floor that is higher than our Space Needle. The cost to go out on that observation deck? $5. Compare that to paying the amount of money you would spend on the top of the Space Needle, and you can see how you can save yourself some money by being higher up in the air by taking the observation deck. That large hill to the left where all those people are home, that's called Kite Hill. The reason why it's called Kite Hill is because 365 days a year, the wind blowing off of the lake creates the perfect conditions for flying kites. That hill has also been featured on the CBS show called The Amazing Race. Season 1 of The Amazing Race, Kite Hill was the starting line for the race around the world. Season 10, it was the finish line. Now, guys, Kite Hill probably looks pretty crowded right now. It was featured in the movie where they shot interior and exterior scenes. Take a look over my right. You're going to see a group of floating homes on the water's edge. Look to the one to the left underneath the blue and white flags. It's yellow in its appearance with a blue trim around the roof and around the porch. Has a single double-pane window above the porch trimmed in yellow. There's a set of double glass doors that are open on the porch right now. There's people sitting hopes to bring it into Seattle in the summer of 2014. Now, guys, unfortunately, you won't be seeing these seaplanes taking off and landing here on our lake today because of all the fireworks. But what you're looking at the south end, right behind us of Lake Union, is an airline called Kenmore Air, a fleet of 30 seaplanes that makes its home right here on Lake Union. Now, Kenmore Air flies locally, regionally, and as far north as Canada. The fact that they fly all the way to Canada technically makes Lake Union an international airport. But what does that mean to you guys? Other than the fact that right now we're in the middle of a runway, is that when we get back ashore, I'm going to ask you guys to please remove your shoes. Empty your pockets of all metal into this basket right up here before passing through. Why don't I put on a song regarding as one of the most romantic songs ever recorded? If this doesn't get that man to throw his hand up in the air, I'm afraid nothing else will. In fact, this song goes out to all the couples on board. Now, I have a very important job for you. Every now and then, I need you to look out here. Make sure we don't hit anything. Now, if it ever looks like something's going to hit us, or we're going to hit it, this is what I need you to say to me. Ah! Got it? Who's that guy with the camera? Let's wave him real quick. Wave. Meantime, guys, take a look while we're riding up on that hill. You see that big square building up there with the big round window on the front? That is St. Mark's Episcopal Church. It started being built in 1928. Originally supposed to be a lot larger, grander looking church, but 1928 was also the same year the stock market crash hit, and they simply ran out of money and had to cap it off at the level you're looking at now. But year after year, they fell further and further behind in their payments. Finally, by 1941, the Bank of St. Louis came calling to start foreclosure procedures against it. But who came to their rescue? The United States Army. The Army had rented out St. Mark's to conduct anti-aircraft gun training for the start of World War II. Now, the Army only stayed 4.5 years, but they paid enough money in rent that by the time they left, that church only owed $5,000 on that mortgage. But under huge public outcry,